Robert and Clarence Ritterbush may not be names that you've heard before, but if you've spent any time in Bismarck, you've definitely seen their work. These brothers had a hand in shaping the city that I'm walking around in right now. But it didn't start in Bismarck. It actually started here in Oaks. Founded in 1886, Oaks is a small town located in Dickey County. It was here in Oaks where Vermonter Alonzo Ritterbush, grandfather of Robert and Clarence, settled with his family around 1886.
Clarence and Robert received their earliest training in building, design, and construction through their family. And in 1917, the brothers enlisted in the Navy, serving in World War I. And so here are two photos, one of Robert and one of Clarence in their Navy uniforms. And we actually do have the Navy identification card of Robert.
Most of their time abroad was spent in Queenstown, Ireland, and this is a U.S. Navy barracks in Ireland that they spent most of their time staying at.
They attended a 3 to 4 year architectural program at the Ohio Mechanics Institute in Cincinnati.
They never completely graduated from the Ohio Mechanics Institute, having to return to Oaks due to their father's poor health. Later, they moved to Bismarck to join with Arthur Van Horn, who was one of their architectural mentors.
It was this partnership with Arthur that created the Van Horn and Ritterbush firm, who are responsible for designing buildings all over North Dakota, but especially Bismarck.
Clarence took sort of an unconventional route. He got married later in life at the age of 58 to his wife Caroline, and she is pictured here, and then his sister-in-law Ruth, who is married to Robert A. Ritterbush.
Clarence held multiple jobs around the country while still maintaining his position in Bismarck. When the work came in, he would draw building designs, then mail them home to the firm.
I think one of his earliest trips was to Arkansas. He also went to Chicago for a time, worked with a company in Chicago. I think his longest trip was in Skagway, Alaska. A lot of nature photos from Alaska. I think that was probably his favorite.
Focusing on the other brother, Robert, he got married to his wife, Ruth, who is pictured in these two. This is Robert Ritterbush, his wife, Ruth, their daughter, Beth, and their son, Bobby.
Examples of Van Horn and Ritterbush work like the Wachter Warehouse, 5th and Main Building, and Bismarck High School have stood the test of time, more or less. Others, like the governor's residence, have been replaced. The brothers did work for their hometown of Oaks as well. At the corner of 6th Street and Main Avenue in Oaks is where the Cash Mercantile Company building used to stand. This business was owned by Edward W. Bittman. He was mayor of Oaks from 1905 to 1907, as well as a friend of Alonzo Ritterbush. It's no surprise then that Bittman contracted with Van Horn and Ritterbush to design him a building that sits down on Main Street to this day. Unfortunately, I couldn't see the interior of the business as they were closed. But, using the blueprints we have in the archives, we can reconstruct what the inside layout was supposed to look like when completed. They also designed the original Oaks swimming pool, which was replaced with the facility behind me in 2004. The original now unfortunately only lives on in blueprint form. And as much as I'd like to run in there and take a dip, because it is sweltering out here, I'm busy and I've got bigger fish to fry. Over in Valley City, the Municipal Auditorium building stands as an example of the Ritterbush brothers' solo practice, as it was built in 1937, several years after Arthur had died.
So the Ritterbush brothers did a lot of schools, churches, and courthouses around central North Dakota. One example of this is Century High School. This was done in the early 70s. A couple middle schools they've done similarly in Wachter. They've also done a lot of elementary schools around the city and state.
But I know it was around the 1970s that Ritterbush brothers became Ritterbush Associates, and that is when Robert A.'s son, Bobby, took over.
So this is from a restoration of the former governor's mansion in 1979. And you can see we have the first floor here, second floor, and third floor. They get smaller as you go up. These are outside pictures of the residence. And this side is the front side.
This internship is specifically focused on the Ritterbush family. I thought that the family photos and postcards were the most interesting. It's not just pictures. They would write messages and stuff on the back, so you'd learn the family antics with each other and just fun stories about their friends.
When we'd find a picture of someone and we wouldn't necessarily know who it was, and then maybe 5 photo books later we'd have a description and be like, I remember that person, like they were in all of these photos, and now we can put a name to a face. We can also put names to the blueprints and maybe put stories behind the blueprints when they took photos, or maybe we're on a trip to see what they designed.